We
Howard,
can if
it's
you want.
great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah, thanks. Great.
So let's begin our journey with this. And I always start with this question just because it was such a big deal. COVID 6 years ago was
Yeah.
changing everything for all of us. How did you get through that era? And how has it changed the way that you live and do things today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. It's great to hear the different answers that people give and everything. And honestly, I find it fascinating because I think it definitely was a time that it really forced people to say, "Whoa, wait a second." They were forced to stop what they were doing, careers, jobs, and they say, "Well, there's more to life than what I'm doing." And then it's almost like when you're in a bad relationship, you don't really realize how bad it is until you step away from it sometimes, or a bad job or whatever. And I meet so many people that have they took the time to learn a new skill or a new hobby or just take a moment to reflect on their family and things. And it seems like there's a general thought that like priorities have changed and it feels different just going through that. And I think it's a good thing to shake things up and get rid of some old things that weren't working, in our culture and everything. So yeah, it was an interesting time, but at least personally, I kind of enjoyed it. I work from home, so it wasn't a huge shift for me. But it's just been interesting watching different people adapt to things. I mean, the bars close earlier now than they used to, and restaurants do things a little differently, and it's still different. I think we're still settling into it, but I think it was a good thing overall.
An interesting fact about speaking of bars, Kansas City was open during Prohibition. We were like it was the Roaring Twenties, jazz, and Pendergast was kind of a mob boss, so we
Mm.
stayed open. So when Kansas City finally closed during COVID, I believe we were one of the only cities that were consecutively open even during Prohibition. So
No
when we
kidding.
closed, yeah, we had a record for that. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
interesting how
it
that
was
how that goes, but yeah.
it's wild. So let's get into the work that you're doing. Before we get into the dice of life, I want to ask you this. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 13-year-olds at career day, and they want to know what you do for a living. How do you encapsulate what you do every day to make sense to them?
Oh gosh, good question. Well, currently I'm in the insurance industry and on the IT, I've moved data around, but most of my career has been in healthcare IT. So when you go to a doctor and you sit there and they're not paying attention to anything that you're saying because they're busy typing in their little laptop and whatever, it was my job to kind of collect all that information from a big giant database. And then I would make hundreds of reports and send it to the state and the government and all sorts of codes and just massively complex systems. The database I worked on in the hospital was over 25,000 tables. I mean, it's just massively complex. So it was almost an art form trying to dig data out of there. And I don't think the public realizes how complicated our healthcare system has gotten. I mean, I could talk about that all day, but yeah, most of my background is in IT, and like I said, right now I'm in insurance. Just moving data around, just I don't know, something about it. I can do it. So make
Yeah.
reports and I don't know. It's kind of not very exciting, but I enjoy it, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, I get it. So let me ask you this. When you were a kid, you were at career day. What did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream?
Oh gosh, I bounced around a lot. I mean, everybody wanted to be a sports athlete, a pro athlete, or I think I want to be an astronaut or a scientist someday or something, which is interesting in itself now because ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, and now I want to be an influencer or I want to be a TikToker or something very different. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess I was always very competitive growing up. My mom tells a story like when I was a toddler, we'd play Candyland, and if I didn't win, I would throw a tantrum. So I would get really upset. So she would have to like stack the deck to make sure I got the ice cream sandwich or something. And that sounds great, but it tends to be a little bit of a curse when you're always trying to improve and compete and try to be better than the next person and so forth. And I found it hard to like actually enjoy anything because I was always trying to, improve or train or do something. And that's kind of led me through I don't know, a bunch of tough times of trying to sort that out, and try to enjoy life a little bit more than trying to always perform and succeed. So that's what led me to this.
So do you have siblings?
I do. I have three younger brothers,
Okay.
and yeah, they're we were always competitive, and we were always fighting about something, and that probably stoked that a little bit too. And yeah, it was a trip. for sure.
So I remember seeing an interview with Michael Jordan recently, and they were asking him about where that competitive fire came from. And all he said was, I had an older brother and a sister. And you have no idea what kind of hatchets
Oh,
would come out when they were competing. And he was
oh
like,
yeah.
that's where he learned the fire. And it's interesting how all of those things early on in your life will set the stage for everything that kind of becomes who you are later.
Exactly right. And that's what I kind of got into. And as I go through life and everyone goes through life is that, the obvious statement is that, people are different, right? Well, yeah, but we forget how different they are. And what kind of occurred to me is I came up with a little analogy that helped me do this. And like you mentioned sports, and there's a phenomenon in sports called your genetic potential, meaning that you just have God-given abilities that will take you to excellence that nobody else can. Everyone has, a ceiling per se, and you can train and you can practice and you can, you learn techniques and everything, but there's going to be some sort of a ceiling that, you're going to hit the rule of diminishing returns. But somebody who's genetically gifted in sports or something, they just have a much higher ceiling. And what occurred to me is that difference in skill potential and abilities must exist in every career, in
Yeah.
every discipline. I mean, medicine or sports or teaching or leadership and so forth. So it really got me thinking about how that happens or why is there such diversity and so forth. And that's where I kind of came up with my dice idea as just a way to explain it, meaning that there's so many variables in your life. Some you can control, some you can't. And when you think about it, where you were born, who your parents were, you have no control over that. Your genetics, you have no control. And it's kind of like a dice roll that goes into your bag. That's just the analogy that I use. And some things you can improve. You can get better at things, and you can practice and improve some of your roles and skills and things. And it's just a great way to visualize it. And then it goes from there. But that's the gist.
What about Malcolm Gladwell's idea of 10,000 hours? How does that factor in?
Well, again, there's so many factors when you start thinking about that because there's 10,000 hours to one person could mean something very different to somebody else,
Yeah.
right? Because now somebody with a genetic ability or a knack for something, they're going to really maximize that 10,000 hours. Yes, it's like to really perfect something, you need that much time. But if you've ever coached kids or watched them grow, some kids can just do things that other kids can't. They just have abilities that are just naturally there. So 10,000 hours towards a kid that has Olympic athletes as parents, they're going to be way, 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 way higher than somebody who's not. So it's a range, but again, your potential is just based upon a lot of factors that you don't have any control over. Yeah.
So, speaking of books, what were you reading growing up? Who were some authors? What were some stories that motivated you that were kind of simmering as you were writing your book?
Oh, to be honest with you, I wasn't really much of a reader. I had trouble with it. I didn't really do very well in school. I would just I don't know. It was just always a struggle. So I could learn things very slowly, and once I got them, I was fine. But it actually became part of a problem. So, and that's actually a good story too, because when I grew up, I was really good at solving puzzles, like the Rubik's Cube I could do and all these things. And everyone said, you are going to be a great engineer. You're going to be an engineer when you grow up, and that's what you should do. And so I said, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. And I went to college, civil engineering, and I basically flunked out. It was terrible. I didn't do very well at all, and I was just not a good test taker. And I was trying to figure out what to do with my life. And at the time, I had a job at the computer lab, at the college, helping people out. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll try information science was the major it was called. And of course, one of the lessons or one of the classes was computer programming, which everybody hated. Everyone hates programming and so forth. And I did too. And it was kind of a funny story where about midway through the semester, I was working on a project and banging my head. It was awful. It was terrible. And then something kind of clicked where all of a sudden I saw the code is almost like Lego blocks, like objects. In other words, I could start visualizing chunks of code in a way that wasn't just like scripted. And I could visualize it in my head. And it was almost like a switch went off. It's like, okay, wait a minute, I can actually see these things. So all that visualization, all of that spatial reasoning and stuff kind of came out as programming and code in languages and working with data and visualizing those objects as components instead of the material, the normal way of a civil engineer would do it or something like that. So it was another reminder to me that there's a lot of things and capabilities and skills we have that manifest themselves in different ways that you just don't know and you can't really predict. So you kind of have to try different experiences and see what you're good at and then push it and become great at it. So yeah, you never know, but that's kind of my story. I ended up writing data and stuff, and I have three kids now, and they're so different, and they all got a bunch of different personalities, and it's really fascinating to think about how all that works together, and how people are just I visualize it as a bag of dice, just with all their inputs and things, and I don't know, something different.
Yeah, well, on that road of figuring out our place, what we're good at, what we can do, there's all these people on the back end that are motivators,
Hmm.
inspirations, heroes. Who has that been for you?
Oh gosh. Well, it changes because, and one of the things that we do as humans is we idolize somebody, but we only idolize certain parts of them. They're only what we see. So we end up comparing ourselves not to the person, but to something they do, or we compare ourselves to this person for this reason and this one for someone else. So you kind of build a variety of, inspiration and motivational role models for different purposes. And I guess that's good and bad to learn from someone like that. But we make the mistake of thinking that if we do the same things that they do, if we follow their advice, then we're going to have the same results. And that's just not realistic. And that's kind of what I wrote my book about, because you can increase your probability for success, but there's a lot of factors that are ultimately not up to you, and they're just variables that you can't control. And it's important to remember that so you don't set yourself up for failure just because you're trying to replicate somebody else's path. When you have your own unique character, your own unique story, your own abilities that are going to have different results. So you kind of have to play your own game and avoid the trap of trying to uh, copy somebody else's strategy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. So I got to know as a tech guy, early on in your life, what was the seminal computer that you learned on? What was the baby that you
Ah,
loved?
yeah, good question. One day my dad brought home a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
I mean, the old thing with the big blue screen, and
Yep.
and you would type stuff out, and you would learn a couple commands, and I never thought much of it at the time, but I mean that was the big thing, and you load up simple games, and you play for hours, and my brothers and I would fight over taking turns and all that stuff, and I guess that was the way things were going, but yeah, I never really got into computers themselves until after college, and then I thought, okay, well, wait a minute, this makes sense to me, but maybe that was a seed planted. I don't know. But
So what's your favorite piece of hardware of all time and your favorite piece of software?
oh gosh. I value things that are simple. Hardware, I don't know. Oh gosh. That's funny. We talk about old, like you just got my triggering for old retro video games. The old
Yes.
the old Ataris had a
Oh
one button
man.
and a stick. I mean,
Yes.
that's the simplest it gets, but there's an elegance in that. And on the software side, like most of my work is done in SQL databases, writing SQL Server, just moving tables and data around and things like that. But um, to be honest with you, like I was a software engineer for about 25 years, and engineers and software people, they love to solve problems and find a problem and fix it. I can build something for this, but over time, what they realize is that the best solution to something is to simplify. So the great developers don't make something so complicated. They spend their time simplifying it, for a lot of reasons, just to make it easier to maintain. It's just easier to understand. And there's great value in simplicity. And I think we forget that often when we're trying to solve problems and make things so complicated. And oftentimes it's just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. So I've had a greater appreciation for the simpler minimalist lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
just overall in general, it's been fun.
Well, one of my favorite quotes coming from being in IT is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I always
Yes,
lament, like Apple, they always have to do these updates. You get used
yes,
to something that totally, because I remember the first time I got the iPhone, I think it was the 4. It was an early version and it was just boxy. I was just like, this is amazing. I
it
can
is.
write, I can record, I can listen, I can make a phone call. I mean, even to this day, when I look at the phone and I think about growing up as a Gen Xer, like, wow, like the fact that these kids have absolutely everything they could possibly
Oh.
want in their pocket.
Well, it's more than that. And like what concerns me, I don't know, concerns everyone, I guess, is that they're growing up in a world where every single problem they have can be solved by an app on their phone.
Yes.
Like if they're hungry, order food online, have it delivered. If they need money, oh, load up an app and gives you a loan or open up a new credit card. If you're lost, okay, if you need a ride somewhere, open up your phone, get an app for that. And it absolutely changes the way that they interact with the world
Yep.
because now they're dependent upon the app to solve their problems rather than, the good old fashioned, figure it out or try to fix something around the house. And there's something to be said for that. It's quite interesting, but it just changes the way their minds function. They just have a different expectation of the physical world and how they interact with it. So yeah,
For sure.
yeah.
So, what is the motivation for you every day to do the work that you do? To take care of your soul, do work at a high level, promote
Mm.
your book, do all of these things that are who you are. What motivates you when the alarm clock goes off?
Good question. Well, I have of inherent, I don't know, fear of being lazy. I don't want to like be idle and so forth. So, and like I said before, like I'm really competitive. I always got to be productive all the time. So I've been really struggling to find the sweet spot between keeping motivated, finding a goal or a task, and working towards it. That have some sort of accomplishment, but also check that and not overdo it, not give 110% all the time and get burned out and have it stop being fun. And um, I'm still working with that personally myself, trying to find, what's good to be motivated, but not obsessive kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I love trying new hobbies now. I'm a recent empty nester, so I have some time to figure out what to do with my life when I grow up, and it's been fun. So I've been talking to people and trying some new hobbies and seeing what sticks because you never know until you try it. So,
for sure.
but it is tough. Self-motivation is a fascinating thing. And again, that's probably another dice that people have. Some people are really self-motivated to be uncomfortable, to push themselves and work, and others maybe not so much. And what drives that is anyone's guess, but it's an interesting part of our humanity to be able to, keep ourselves busy and out of trouble,
Yeah.
but also not overdo it. That's not healthy either.
That's it. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 18-year-old version of you,
Mm.
and you walked into a room and there was a film projector and you click play and a 60-second highlight reel of the life you've lived, the choices you've made, it came up on the wall. Would that 18-year-old version believe that your life turned out this way?
Um, Yes and no. Yeah, when I was about 18, 20, I kind of made decisions of where I wanted to go. I really wanted to, have a family to support and do the traditional, job, take care of a family and have a good wife, which I was lucky to have. So I made a lot of really conscious decisions to work towards that. Um, you bounce around and things happen that you absolutely cannot expect. But generally speaking, I made a lot of really good decisions early on that proved to pay out later. And I stayed healthy. I continued to exercise and do all the things you should do to give yourself the best chances because it's all probability. But yeah, no, I mean you don't know how it's going to go, but I'm pleased at how it went, and I think I did okay. So hanging in there.
Right on. So let me ask
Yeah.
you this. In that 60-second highlight reel, what are you the happiest about, the proudest of?
Oh gosh. Definitely my family. We
Yeah.
had we had a lot of bumps and bruises along the way. At times I didn't think we were going to make it, but but we stayed the course, and kids are all doing okay right now, and we have some time, and that was a challenge. So I'm pretty proud that we made it through that. It was not easy, um, but you know, have had a great career. I've accomplished a lot of things. I don't have too many regrets, um, and I'm just trying to figure out to do what's next, I guess.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
what was the motivating force to write The Dice of Life? I mean, it's an interesting breakdown of the probability and everything that goes into life.
yeah.
What?
No, I guess it was, to be honest with you, it was kind of a way to convince me that you know, all the, you know, I always felt that I was a failure because I wasn't a, you know, a Fortune 500 CEO, or, you know, everyone says you have to do this to be successful. And I was kicking myself because I wasn't doing that. And it kind of was an exercise for me to convince myself, well, there's a lot of things that people go through that are in their control and not in their control. Everyone kind of has a different path. So I use that analogy to try to convince myself that there's just a lot of factors in life that are outside of our control, and it's in our best interest to try to maximize the probability of things we can. You know, little 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 things in your day that keep you healthy and good habits. And it's not a guarantee you're going to succeed, but it's definitely increasing your probabilities. And you know, maybe I'm not genetically possible. It doesn't have, you know, I'm not going to be an Olympic athlete. I don't care how hard I try, but it's like that with everything else. So yeah, just visualizing people as that is very helpful, and it works with relationships too. When you see someone and they do something that hurts you, or something you don't like, you kind of have to visualize them as just the culmination uh, of their dice. You know, the variables outside their control. Maybe it's what they were told, or something happened to them, and it's oftentimes not their fault. Their way that you know they do something that they do, and it just helps to visualize that. So yeah, I don't. I'm kind of rambling on, but it's just a good analogy that helped me and my wife get through all the different variations of kids in life, and we still use it. You know, so
Speaking of kids and being a parent, I think about the idea of your book, and I think about nature and nurture,
yes,
and how all that parlays out, and you get to see it really up close when you're a parent. Like there's things that
yes,
my son will do that I didn't teach him. It just was not something that I got into, but it's a
right,
part of their architecture, and I think that's
absolutely,
another interesting facet of our
yes.
biology and psychology.
Yes, no, that's exactly it. That's exactly the point. And it's just more than that. I mean, if you're an introvert or an extrovert, or if you have skills in music and your parents force you to play football, I mean, you're going to have a bad time. And all of those influences of your early childhood and your parents and your economic situation, all of those are factors beyond your control, but they all influence you in different ways. And personally, we all have different responses to those too. We have different capabilities and different thresholds of how we deal with trauma or addictions, and the mental health aspect is bananas too. I mean, everyone has different brain chemistries and how they react to things, and there's just so many different variables that come into play. So at least for me, I tried to explain it in a way that, you know, it that's why it makes it so difficult to compare yourself to somebody else, because of their abilities, because of their situations, and never ruled out luck either. I mean, a lot of successful people, or whatever, got to where they were just because of a little bit of luck along the way too. And they don't like to admit it sometimes, but that's just kind of how life is. So it's fascinating.
I totally get it. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, everyone at work, everyone that gets your book, everyone that knows you in varying capacities, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh gosh. Wow, that changes by the day. It's funny because, yeah, that's good. I think we all struggle with that, don't we?
Yeah.
We all worry about what people think of us. And the reminder, the funny joke I always think of is that when you're young, you really care about what people think of you, and when you're middle aged, you stop caring what people think about you, and when you're old, you realize that nobody was ever thinking about you in the first place.
Yes. That's totally true.
So, yeah, it's kind of a reminder that you're probably not as important as you think you are, but it's really a personal journey to kind of create your own goals and your own success, and measure that based on yourself, not other people. And it kind of goes back to that. Um, no, but I'm kind of proud of where I've been. I've done a lot, and uh, I try not to live with too many regrets. Most people regret what they didn't do and rather what they did, but yeah, and kind of working through it like we all are.
So before we got on, we were talking about sports, and you were talking about being a Browns fan. If you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one glorious Browns game, where are you going?
Gosh. Uh, I don't know. The closest they ever got to the Super Bowl was the that AFC final playoff game. They kind of blew it at the last minute. It's kind of, I hate to say it, but I haven't watched a Browns game in about 3 years,
Yeah.
and my life is infinitely better. So I I used to play fantasy football all the time, and I gave that up too, and it's just been so much nicer not having to worry about all that anymore. So I don't follow it as much as I used to, but sports is a crazy thing.
Yeah, it certainly is. So if anybody wants to pick up a copy of The Dice of Life, they want to reach out, any of the other good business in your world, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, I do have a website. It's actually my name is the easiest way for me to remember it, howardminer.com. Yeah, it's a free download. It's on Amazon, but you can read it there. A couple other articles of random things. I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin information on there. That talk about that all day and stuff like that. But no, it's a good time. So yeah.
I love it. All right, well, I will put all these links in the show notes. Howard, what a joy, man. Great to meet you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too, man.